Just quickly, for those who don't know me, I'm the current National President of IPWA. I've been part of IPWA for, I think, can't remember how many years now, 25 years I think it is. I've been the President of WA. I've been on the National Board since 2017. So for the next 2 years, you've got my face as the face of IPWA Australasia. That's not working. Don't worry about using that. Skip that. So the group that we've been sort of running with for quite some time, we started with subsurface stormwater information. We started about 2015. Our steering group started, and I've been chairing it since 2015. But in 2020, we came up with one of the recommendations is we needed a code of practice guidelines which describes the process of a model build and verification and reporting for stormwater. I won't run through all that information because I'm not going to stay here very long. I'm going to hand it over to Helen in a second. But there's been a lot of work behind the scenes. As I say, the first workshop was in 2020, we had another one in 2021 that came up with a lot of the information, which was this one here. And I won't run through all that information, but it's really to bridge some gaps. We found some gaps in the information that's out there through Australian Rainfall and Runoff and Stormwater WA documents, which are very high level, and we wanted to bring that back down to this code of practice to help new practitioners, young practitioners that are going through it. I know this room is probably full of all the very experienced people who understand this, but we've also got a lot of new people coming through. And we thought there was a bit of a gap there, and we needed this code of practice to help those people come along. So that's where we ended up with this code of practice, which has been a lot of work behind the scenes by quite a number of people. And they were probably the main groups that dealt with this code of practice over time. A lot of you around here would have been part of those groups that have worked through all that over the time. So, and there's Helen. Everyone knows Helen. That's a really big photo. So I didn't take the photo. Sorry. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. All right. There you go. I've done it. So I'm going to hand it over to Helen, and she's going to run through the more in-depth information. Thanks, Helen.
Okay. Cheers. I'm really not going to talk for very long, so that's not good.
Maybe we'll turn that on.
Yeah, that might be good because I've got my here. Take it away. When in doubt, just So yeah, I'm not going to talk for very long. I'll just go through a little bit about what the code of practice is, what it isn't. And how we came up with it, but there'll be some time for people to ask questions at the end. So if you have a burning question about what's in the code of practice, I'll hopefully try to answer it at the end. So this is the process that we went through to develop the code of practice. So there was a phase of industry engagement. We went through a review of as much industry guidance as we could find, so local stuff, national, international guidelines, to try to pull together some ideas about what the format and structure of the document needed to be, but also some of the content. So then there was a bit of a scoping phase. We had a technical working group that we assembled, and I can see a few people who were on that technical working group in the audience today, which is great. And then obviously just sitting down and writing it and getting bits of content from different players, different people who are in the industry. So thanks to everybody who was involved. So just a list there of some of the people that were involved in that technical working group and in consultation through the process. There was a survey that was done. You may have seen the survey questions come out. That was kind of managed through New Waterways. We had two good long meetings with the technical working group to go through specific issues during the development of the document. And then ultimately the document has been reviewed and endorsed by Stormwater WA, Engineers Australia, Hydro Water Resources Panel, and of course IPWEA as well. So that the document has the backing of all three of those organisations, which was a really key objective for us. So when we were going through that initial industry engagement, there were some key gaps that people identified that needed resolving, and a large part of that was this idea of, you know, Australian Rainfall and Runoff is a key guidance document for drainage modelling, for urban hydrology, as well as being for flood hydrology. But there are some gaps in there, particularly in relation to our local context. So there was some local conditions gaps, there was some gaps around shallow groundwater in particular, some of our regional hydrology issues. And one of the things that had been coming up over and over again, and particularly at those early workshops at UWA and through interaction with local government engineers, was this idea around parameter selection and justification of parameters and explaining where those have come from and what they're used for in different types of models and different approaches to modelling. So that was a really key one that we wanted to try and provide a bit more of a framework around how to select parameters, how to talk about why you've chosen those parameters, some common language, so that we've got guidance in there that's for modellers, but also for people who are going to be reviewing modelling and trying to understand modelling when they don't necessarily do it as their day-to-day job. So the primary resources, obviously, Australian Rainfall and Runoff is the principal one, but Stormwater Management Manual as well is a key local document with a lot more context-specific guidance, but not specifically around modelling. But we also went through a whole bunch of other things. So Queensland Water Modelling Network, e-Water Toolkit, so CIWEM Urban Drainage Code of Practice, which is the UK standard, groundwater modelling guidelines, which although it's very different content, a similar kind of structure to the guidelines and similar kind of, you know, same modelling process. So that one was a really useful one as well. And of course, our local government guidance and policy from a bunch of different local governments that have tried to sort of give guidance in this space in the past. So bringing all of that together, we came up with a bunch of gaps. I'm not going to read all of that, but it was really just about trying to find where those opportunities were to provide clarity, guidance, and just to pull information together and give people pointers as well as to where to look for things in Australian Rainfall and Runoff. So in the document there are a number of links that sort of say, okay, well this chapter of Australian Rainfall and Runoff is where you need to go for this kind of information. So it does provide those linkages as well. So the Code of Practice does provide some local context, some specific guidance for modellers and also for reviewers, and hopefully some clarity around both reporting of modelling, but also data management requirements in WA. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't set any policy. So there is no setting or establishing of requirements or policy within this document. All it does is provide guidance and a framework for modelling, for a modelling process that hopefully people will adopt and start to use and find useful. It doesn't provide fixed numeric values for parameters. It doesn't even provide ranges for those things. What it does is it tries to provide guidance for selection of parameters and provide ways for people to determine and help to think about which parameter they should be using in which circumstance. So it's not going to say to you, right, use this number. It's going to say, look at these resources, think about these hydrological processes, and that's how you get to your parameters. And it certainly doesn't replace or reproduce Australian Rainfall and Runoff or the Stormwater Management Manual. It just provides connections to specific parts of those documents where relevant. So where we think it's to be applied is modelling of urban and peri-urban drainage systems, predicting flood development, flood behaviour in developed and developing areas. It's not a regional flood management modelling type tool. It's not looking at whole of catchment flood modelling. It's drainage systems. So it's urban drainage systems and in the sort of peri-urban region. For planning new drainage systems. So if you're planning and designing a new drainage system, the modelling processes and practices within this document are aimed at that kind of process, but also looking at where you need upgrades or modifications to the system to deal with increased impervious areas or changing configuration, changing urban landscapes. And just briefly, the content, so goes through a fairly simple process that sort of follows a standard model development process, so project planning, definition, conceptualisation, data collection, model development, confidence, and understanding of testing of parameters and sensitivity testing is in there. There's a lot of stuff in there we've tried to cover around risk and thinking about how you go about testing with a model to deal with different types of risks, so that both the risks of over-design and under-design, and trying to understand how those things can be addressed through modelling. Documentation, what we're applying those models for, and obviously some references and resources to point people in the right direction for other guidance. There's some other content within the document. So there's a glossary of terms. So there's some terminology at the front, which hopefully is useful to give people a bit of a common language around things. I won't guarantee that the terms are exactly the way you understand them to be or the way that you use them, but just provides some understanding of how they're used in this document. So there's that common language there. References and resources. There is a model review checklist, and it's not intended as a checklist where you tick every box and you figure out, okay, we've passed. It's about triggering thought processes. Okay, have I thought about that part of my model? Have I thought about that parameter selection? Have I gone through the process appropriately? So it's not intended to be a tick, 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 pass type approach. And then there's another section at the back, which is just around, things that you need to consider as you're going through a modelling review process. So if you're reviewing a model, what are the things that you need to think about as you go through that process? So hopefully some of that stuff is useful. Obviously, we'll see how people use it, and hopefully things will change over time as people decide which bits are more useful than others. And it's going to be available for download. I don't know if it's up there yet, but it will be in the next couple of days. IPWER WA, we've got it on their website. Stormwater WA will have it on their website. Engineers Australia would also, and it'll also be available from the New Waterways website. So it's going to be ready and available for everybody to download and use as soon as possible, hopefully today. And that is pretty much it. I really hope people find it useful. I really hope that it sort of triggers people to think about better practice. And if you disagree with anything in it, just let us know and we'll think about revising it one day. But yeah, any questions, I'm happy to have a go at answering them.